Okay, are you ready? All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order for the Polk County Board of Commissioners for Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. All commissioners are present. Announcements are on the agendas and extra copies are on the side table. First item up is for comments for items not on the agenda. It's your chance.
Well,
Please come forward.
good morning, Chair Polk and Commissioners. A quick question. My name is Chip North and I'm from Ferns Corner Road here in Monmouth. Last 20 years, I've been driving the Ferns Corner gravel road. I've lost countless tires and been thrown, rocks been thrown at me while riding my motorcycle. And, just when I talked to Counselor Ainsworth many years ago, as I badgered him and whatever I saw him in public, he said, well, you bought that property in the gravel road. I said, I know, but it's also the 21st century. It'd be nice to not have to drive on a gravel road. Just my general attitude towards gravel roads. And lately, but it just 20 years been driving that road. And I give you that background to ask a question there's patches of this road now that are being oiled. And I don't know if that's a county process or if it's a private citizen that's paying for this, but it's really random. And none of it is on the Monmouth side where I live. And so I'm just curious if you could shed some light on that process, or if you know, you may not. And that's why I wasn't going to ask it in this forum, but since you prodded me, I thought I would do so.
So first of all, caution us all with, we don't normally do back and forth, but you are asking a legitimate question about process and what we do. And I will defer to one of these gentlemen. I mean, Mr. Hanson has the vast history on what happens and the logic for why we do this. And first of all is cost, but
yeah.
I will defer to
And if this is not the proper form, that's fine. I just wanted.
Yeah. But it's reasonable. Every once in a while, we should explain why you feel stranded.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's on me. Normally our process for dust oil, that's what we refer to it as, is the county only applies dust oil to usually areas where there is a hill, either going up or down, to control washboarding and that. There have been other places we have done it for dust control for a particular reason, but that's very rare. It's mostly to protect the integrity of the road and the drivability and quality. We do also supply names to individuals who want dust control on their road. They go through an application process, I think, at Public Works, and they contact the people that provide that and get a cost estimate, and they choose to dust oil their road or not. So that's usually the process for dust control or lignicide on your road. Is that still the product that's used, pretty much lignicide?
Primarily, yes. Yeah.
So that's how we actually do that for gravel roads. We usually just supply the individual who's requesting that, and then they deal with the private contractor to do that. So
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Chip, I'll mention, I've received a similar question from somebody near Fall City, and they're getting some neighbors together to go in on a potential project to expand more of that material. But happy to email you the link on the well-maintained Polk County Public Works website where there was contact info.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chip. Any other comments? All right, hearing none, moving on. Approval of the agenda.
Also move.
I would like to consider as consent items separately, but I can do that at the adopt for the consent if you'd like.
Name it.
Okay, it's the contract 25-99 with River of Life House.
Okay. Consider that pulled and set aside. Now, approval of agenda.
Also move.
Second, as amended.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the minutes from June 11th.
I'll move approval.
I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain. Wasn't here. Approval of consent calendar
Also move
Second.
with item B
with item B pulled.
pulled. Yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now we can discuss item B.
Sure. So this is a contract via Community Corrections with a transitional housing project in Dallas for people on parole and probation or exiting prison. And I have a concern with one of the one of their practices that could be remedied potentially in the contract or by other means, but essentially they mandate participation in church services for entry into the program. So I have legal concerns there. And it's not stipulated in the contract that those services are voluntary. It also says that their board makes final decisions on a case-to-case basis. I understand why a program would want some control over that, but I'm curious how that actually works in practice, given that we're paying for 6 beds, whether or not they're filled, at $32,000 a year. So just opening this up for discussion or ideas from council, if we could consider maybe adding something to Exhibit A saying that any church services while available and certainly encourage are not mandatory for utilization of the service, which I think is going to create barriers. And I've heard from folks that it is a barrier to utilization of the program.
Yeah, I can have a conversation with Jody and look at the contract on that piece and circle back with you all later in the week on it.
Is the River Life a non-government entity that we just contract with? So.
They're not the first one
Right.
that we've had contracts with.
Yep.
And I have issues stepping on what they want to deem as their rules and regulations and what they offer. They're a standalone non-government group. I think we would have the option to whether we want to contract with them because of that. But to dictate whether they have to have that in their rules or guidelines or not, I don't think is our call. Union Gospel Mission is a perfect example. So it's a good outreach and it's probably Christian based and Christian funded mostly.
Well, this is public dollars that we're setting
Yes.
aside for an entire, I imagine, entire house. And while there are other faith-based organizations that receive public dollars, they explicitly do not require that service. So UGM's shelter service, for example, does not require participation. Their next level service does, but this is very explicit. It's on their website. All residents are required to attend weekly church services. I'm worried about the legality of that, with state constitution particularly. And yeah, and so I would not support a contract as it stands now. Would consider if both parties are agreeable to making those services optional. We're not telling them they can't offer those services to other folks outside of, or mandate that for folks that are not supplied with public funds, or bar residents from voluntarily engaging in those services, which I think is more appropriate on multiple levels. So certainly don't want to mandate what they do as an organization, but I think with the public dollars, we have to be very conscious of our obligations. And yeah, so I wouldn't mind just seeing if they're amenable to that and then going from there, but open to discussion.
So let's consider it pulled and set aside. And
I'll circle back with Jody and the contract language and bring something back to y'all later.
Thanks.
Thank you.
okay. All right, next up is the treasurer's report. Mr. Milligan has indicated he could not be here today. But there is a report in the agenda. So is there any concerns or questions or discussion?
No concerns on the report itself, but I just want to note that the statute requires this to be submitted by the 10th of every month. So hopefully we can work that out so that if he doesn't plan to present this to the public in the future, that we're allowing him to obligate his statutory requirement to provide it to us by the 10th of every month. Just want to
I
know.
like that idea as well.
Okay, and year-end modifications, budget and resolution number 25-09. Mr. Hanson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, this is our year-end modifications to the 24-25 budget that we're currently operating in. There are a number of modifications indicated in this resolution. Primarily, the reason for those modifications is appropriation authority. For example, my estimate is the county clerk is gonna exceed her budget in elections by about $10,000. And we'll see if it's 15,000, but we're trying to be safe. Nothing they did, it's just the cost of elections and what we've had. Obviously, a November election is much greater in presidential election than it is in other Novembers. Required to have more people on staff to count ballots or do the ballot process. There are really no surprises in this modification. There are a lot of them, like I said, but a lot of them are $5,000 and those kind of things, just to make sure we don't violate appropriation authority rather than, you know, it's not the fault of the department head or anything else. It's just when you're budgeting, within 5,000 is pretty darn good anyway. So with a lot of unknowns in that. So that is what it is. We do this twice a year, usually around February. We make modifications. This last year, we had a supplemental budget for, I think, 2 programs. And this is the one that at the year end, when we have a much better idea of whether appropriation authority is adequate or not, that we have this last one to clean it up. So I would recommend that you approve this modification and we'll get the corrections inside the budget itself for this existing year. And next week we will be adopting the 25-26 budget with some modifications, obviously the fair and other things, but this one takes care of 24-25. So again, I would recommend the modification be approved.
Also move as presented.
Second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Do we have a need for an executive session?
Yes, sir. The board will meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660-2E to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions.